Mm.
Right now, for me, it's this idea of being committed to building rather than being committed to the idea of comfort. And by that, I mean this idea that you don't realize how step one takes you to step three, takes you to step four, to step 10, to a point where you have a completely different business. Your life is taking a completely different turn, and you look back and wonder what you were doing in the first place, right? So it's the idea of, for me, be present and build from wherever you are. Be present and build wherever you are, rather than feeling as though you'll be this comfortable expert.
Welcome to Risk and Rise, the podcast where we explore the journey of overcoming the fear of failure, embracing risk, and achieving success in entrepreneurship, creativity, and personal growth. I'm your host, Talana Simpson, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Together, we'll discover the strategies, insights, and shifts in our thinking and attitudes that are needed to turn setbacks into stepping stones and transform fear into fuel for success. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode of Risk and Rise. Today we are risking and rising with Mongezi Mtati. He is a brand and marketing strategist and the host of the podcast called The Lead Creative. He's also an entrepreneur, been involved in a number of ventures, and has a lot of learnings that he can unpack and share with us today. Welcome, Mongezi. I've been so excited to chat with you for a number of reasons, but I think one of them is because you and I go way back now. We go way back in terms of our learning with podcasting and our matchstick stories and just our growth as entrepreneurs. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on Risk and Rise, is to hear more about your experience of learning from failure. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background, your journey that got you to where you are right now, and if you had any fears along the way, especially in the ventures that you have created.
No, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's also a bit odd and weird as well, because you and I always talk, but in this setting, it has to be all, I suppose, serious and focused. So in terms of just the ventures things that I guess, without going into too much detail, I guess one of the things I think that was a turning point in my life was when I decided with a friend at the time that we'd quit our job and go into entrepreneurship together and start this business, which at the time really made sense. It was about, we were going to sell home and car electronics, and through some learning and that business falling flat, I then landed somehow on digital marketing, or at least at the time, the sort of infancy of what was to become social media and the space that I would then work in. So I then went from that business into this sort of digital space, the social media marketing space, starting a business called Word Starts. And from there, it's really been a journey of becoming, in very many ways, a self-taught kind of digital strategist. And of course, along the way, I got to work with brands and really great people to help me along that journey. And then the sort of formal part of that education kind of came in. So I think for me, it's been, so that's what it's been. I think it's been this journey of somehow falling or reaching failure and realizing at the bottom that actually there's something else and something else to build on from that point.
So cool. So I want to really unpack, if you don't mind, going a bit more
Sure.
into the failures and that, and what you mean by what you said. Like when you get to the bottom, it's actually just a foundation for the next. It's kind of what I think you're saying.
Yeah.
But the first part is, you had a job, you and your friend, and you quit it to start this. What led you to make that leap? And was there any fear involved in it? That so like I'm just trying to understand, was it just normal and natural, or did you actually take
Yeah.
something to quit the job and go for it?
No, there's definitely a lot of fear involved in that because you are leaving a salary at the end of that particular month, right? So how it happened was the two of us thought that, okay, with our salary this month, we'll take 50% of the salary to buy stock and the rest will beg and borrow and sell the stock that we're getting. And that first month didn't quite work out. And then we started dipping into savings, into credit cards, into all of these things. So, if anything, the fear of starting was really bad. But also the fear of the next day, are we going to make enough to supplement the salaries that we're earning? Are we going to get to a point where this thing really sells and starts to make a profit? So there were definitely fears along the way, fears which as I said, when that business fell flat, or that concept or that idea didn't really grow, that those, call it the fears or the experience, was then a bit of school fees that I believe now looking back, I had to pay to get to the next step.
So is there anything that helped you just to manage those fears at the time, or were you just so busy hustling around trying to make it work?
I think I don't remember anything kind of helping me to manage those fears. I think it was really that we were in action, kind of making this work. It helped that I was working with someone. I had a partner. There was a family behind me who were very reluctant, first of all, in me quitting the job to start this thing, because it's uncertainty. I'm leaving certainty for something that isn't really certain. So there was this reluctant support from the family side. It helped that I was working with this guy. And for me, a lot of what helped at the time was that I was doing, also beyond the hustling, I was doing a lot of research around how to make it in this business, around how to build what we were trying to build, and how big the opportunity was. So those were kind of the contributors that were helping along the way. But I think the fear itself wasn't greater than the need to build and keep growing.
Mm. Okay, so they were learn what's the school fees, as you called it,
Yeah,
from
yeah,
that experience. So what was one of
exactly.
the key takeaways that you took then forward with you?
I think the key, so this keeps changing because of my perspective when I look back at that time. I think from the point that I am at any given time, the perspective of what I learned during that time really changes.
Mm,
Right now, for me, it's this idea of being committed to building rather than being committed to the idea of comfort, right? And and by that I mean this idea that you don't realize how step one takes you to step three, takes you to step four, to step 10, to a point where you have a completely different business. Your life is taking a completely different turn, and you look back and wonder what you were doing in the first place, right? So it's the idea of, for me, be present and build from wherever you are. Be present and build wherever you are, rather than feeling as though you'll be this comfortable expert Formula One driver who understands how to operate a car on the freeway. It's like every single day is a new day of driving, So I think I think for me that's the one big lesson. And the other one is that everything leads to everything else, right? So when I had, I mean, when I had this business, when I started this thing, I don't know, I was probably in my late 20s. Let's say, I think I was in my late 20s when I started this thing, which is now a long time ago. And I realized that I started this thing in my late 20s. I've always been starting things in one way or another. But the first time that I really ever started anything that was related to selling something or being in business, I was 14 years old, right? So it's like everything leads to everything else, and you're almost always on a path to get to a place. Have a vision of what that place is for sure. Build on what that place is, definitely, but be less be less committed to building it exactly as you want it to be, but be more committed to building yourself along the way, because that's what gets you there.
Absolutely, yeah. So I heard a few things. One is like you're not going to be perfect the first time, and as you go, it's a learning, and each day is new. So you're still learning every day,
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
each step builds on the other. So you mentioned a bit about selling. So I mean, the examples you gave of selling stuff at 14 years old, and then this car electronics business. Um, what are your thoughts or any ideas around that fear of rejection that a lot of people have in actually asking for the sale, in putting themselves out there to sell?
I think my view on that. So firstly, my view on myself as a person who sells is that I don't think I'm good at selling. I don't think I'm a salesperson, right? So I definitely, if you were to give me anything to sell in a traditional sense of selling, I would definitely have that fear of rejection. So I'll start there with just myself. That said, though, the next step to that is that we are always selling, right? We're always selling something, always selling an idea of some sort. And we sell these ideas and we sell these thoughts and we sell these things without realizing that we are. We and the idea of it is make this idea of selling comfortable to you in what comes natural to you. So I think for me that's how I overcome that fear of rejection, right? So right now it doesn't sound like I'm selling anything as I'm talking to you like this, but somebody else might be buying this as an idea of someone who understands how to capture ideas, someone who understands how to sell ideas. Like so we are always selling. It's just that I believe that the idea of selling things, of someone wearing a crisp shirt and saying buy this, and you haggle and there's negotiation and there's that. I'm not that kind of person, but I sell ideas every single day by just talking about the ideas that I sell and the things that I understand and know about the world and my industry and my craft. So this, for me, this fear of rejection comes from this understanding of someone else's idea of what selling is about, of what
Oh,
selling really is. So for me, selling is about packaging your idea, packaging your story, and putting it out there to the kind of person with whom that story and that idea and that concept resonates. So that's kind of where it comes from, right? Make the sale or make the selling comfortable and natural to you, the same way that the same way that a motor mechanic doesn't have to sell you on the idea of coming to them to fix your car, but by virtue of seeing this motor mechanic that you pass every day, when your car breaks down, they've sold you on the idea of you coming to them. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's very much your perspective on the concept.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. So then, what else? I know there's been WordStart that came, grew out of car electronics and that. Are there any other like highlights that you can think of in terms of failing? I don't know. Some people might say it's not a highlight. For me, failure is. But just to ask, were there any other examples that you can share that led to like a breakthrough in your entrepreneurial journey? Something that's like,
Yeah, there are quite a few. There are quite a few, and I think the so out of this, so out of this idea of the car electronics business and where it starts coming to be, and now being a brand strategist, out of these things came other things, and one of the things that came out of it was in fact, someone convinced me of this, and I only realized after I'd been convinced that it's another thing that I'd also always done. So someone convinced me to, a mentor of mine really convinced me to start being a public speaker and getting paid to speak at events and conferences. And once again, something else that I didn't have to go out there and sell, right? Something else that one person sees a video of something you've done, another conference organizer invites you, and so on and so on. So that kind of becomes a thing that way as well. So so that's the speaking thing also came out of that, where I then started speaking at conferences about my learnings and lessons in digital media and digital marketing and social media marketing and all of that. So when that again started happening, I also realized that in high school, I was part of the debating team. Like that's when I started kind of public speaking. And this is something that I was doing, as a teen in high school, without really a care in the world, just sitting in front of people and talking. But we forget we forget our foundations as we go, and as the world tells us that work looks like this, or selling looks like that, or this is how this sort of cookie cutter planet that we sometimes live in gives us these ideas and notions of how things should be and how things should work, but it's actually not true, because everything that we do questions that just naturally without even having to go into it. So then this idea of being a public speaker came out of it. And of course, you and I at some point were podcasting
yeah.
very early on. And that podcasting thing was because I, in some way or another, kind of liked this idea of having conversations with people. And during COVID, when everybody was at home making beer and baking bread, I started a podcast because the world was in a completely different place. The world was in an uncertain place. I got retrenched at the time. I wanted to meet really interesting people. And I realized that instead of knocking on doors a lot of the time to kind of look for a job or look for opportunity, one of the ways is to create something that puts you naturally in a space where you can have conversations with some of the people who are influential in crafting and creating our culture as we've come to know it from a brand and marketing perspective. So then I started the podcast, and I was, in my bedroom, shushing everyone, recording these conversations, and that's kind of how it started. So once again, out of the one set of failure, which was the retrenchment, came these conversations on my podcast, and I don't know how many episodes I've had now, probably close to 60. So that's, I think, another thing that's where it's like one thing leads to another. As cliche as that sounds, one thing does lead to another.
Yeah, so it's to try and remember that in that moment, you've just received the really bad news, or you've just found yourself absolutely at rock bottom with whatever failed. It's just to say, well, I've just got to find now what's the next thing.
Exactly. What's the silver lining out of this? And I think without sounding self-help, because when you are on the receiving end of that, you don't see that silver lining, right? So
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's understanding actually that it's natural to not see the silver lining, but also you've always been doing things that question the status quo, that change the world in one way or another. Stick to those things. What is that thing right now? What is that thing for you? And I think that's something that I almost always ask myself, and I almost always try to cultivate this idea that if you were to put me in a different country where I don't know anyone, what would I do to start at rock bottom, to get a to be able to at least buy a sandwich, right? So it's like, so I think that's kind of how I think, and I'm by no means an expert at seeing the silver lining naturally.
yeah. It often comes anyway in hindsight.
Yeah,
As you said, you can look back. But then using that example, you've now at rock bottom in a new country and you need to get a sandwich.
yeah,
What I'm just trying to work out what the question is like, how do you get yourself to do something? Like it's what is the mindset or the attitude? What do you say to yourself? And I don't know if there's a more realistic example. So it sounds like in that example you gave of being retrenched and finding yourself
yeah,
at home in COVID, your question was, well, I really enjoy having conversations with fascinating people, and I love brand and branding because that's, your background with WordStart and all that, which led you to, well, let me just start having conversations in a podcast format because you've also had that experience. So it's, what is the attitude or the thinking that you go through that helps you to do something
mm.
when you're
It's
on the floor?
yeah, I think I think it's not an easy one, to be honest. And but it definitely has to do with understanding that the thing you do, or the thing you do that brought you here, isn't the same thing that's going to take you to the next step, or isn't the same thing that's going to take you to the next level. But it's definitely a foundation, because I almost look at, so for me, I look at both, right? I look at both sides. I look at the one side, which is the thing that took me here won't take me there kind of thing, which is something everybody always says. But also I look at what is it about the thing that took me here that can help me with my next step. Like throw away,
Yeah,
I don't throw away the things I've learned, the things I love, the things that come naturally to me, the experiences that have helped me to become who I am. So it's really a mindset of if anything, of gaining clarity and gaining self clarity, if anything, right? Clarity about the fact that the things that took you to point A can take you to point B, but it's not the same effort, it's not the same mindset, it's not the same thinking. You need to develop the mindset for the next step, but the mindset that you have already developed is definitely a foundation. So for me,
yeah.
I'm not of the school of thought that you should almost throw away what you've learned in favor of something new.
No, it sounds like your whole approach is always this that you're on a journey, and it just happens to be the next step using the previous one as the is where you're stepping off of. You're
Exactly,
not
exactly.
staying
So
there, you're
yeah,
moving forward, but with the learnings from that is the springboard to the
exactly. That's true. I
next
think for
step.
me, it's an incremental approach. Like, it's an incremental approach to growing and building. that and also this realization of sometimes stepping back to see all the puzzle pieces sometimes, because we at any given point we are very close and too close to whatever we're doing. And it's also finding that way to kind of step away, and sometimes that stepping away is having conversations with people who come from a completely different space, completely different mindset, who approach the world differently, right? Like who are chalk to your cheese, if you will. Like it's that for me, and it's then this incremental approach, but also this. I think one of the things that is hard to learn, and again, something that I keep learning, something that I started learning many years ago, but I keep learning, is this idea of that the discomfort is the way. It's like it's the
Yeah.
discomfort that helps you grow, and we don't naturally seek out discomfort, but it's precisely that discomfort that gets you there.
Absolutely, but it sounds like you intentionally then trying to seek it out in the discomfort of speaking to people who are totally different background view of the world from you, especially in those difficult moments, because that different perspective can spark a learning or an idea or something. Great. And then I know you mentioned earlier mentors, and I know you've always had some wonderful supportive mentors over the years. What has been their role, and is it something you would recommend anyone else that is trying to overcome that fear and get their business going, take that step, quit their job?
It definitely is. It definitely is, and it's not always about. It's not always about the 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 big thing, like quitting your job or starting a business. I think or at least I've been guilty of seeing it that way, of that it's, the big thing is starting a business, it's quitting your job, it's changing your life completely, it's, doing a complete 360 from where you are. So it isn't always about that. And I think for me, the value from a basic perspective, like the value of mentors for me has been this idea of having somebody with a completely different perspective, who has seen life from a completely different vantage point, and has, in very many ways, as I view it, made it in their own way, right? It's almost like having an adult in the room, like so basically that's sometimes what I seek out, like the adult in the room, or somebody who is the opposite of an adult in the room, who's the child in the room, right? Depending on what I need to learn or where I need to go, because sometimes I find that I'm probably too much of an adult in my own, in that I'm set in my own ways, that this works, that doesn't. This is black, that's white. But actually someone else sees the black and white as yellow and says, no, you can go with yellow, it really works here. You can go with red, it really works here. So sometimes, so for me, it's this, just using the analogy of color, it's adding color to my own thinking, to my own approach, to how I would approach things, but in my own way. So it's adding that different perspective, that different layer, that different sort of color. And I would definitely recommend it. And I would go so far as to recommend even paying for it, if it's not, if you're able to, even paying for some sort of accelerated learning, some sort of accelerated self-realization, be it through mentorship, be it through coaching, be it through study, be it through joining, like joining one of these, I suppose, one of these I guess groups that sometimes have, forget the word now, but but they have like retreats or something along those lines that leads to accelerated learning or an accelerated development of perspective, right? So that's definitely something that I would recommend anyone and everyone does.
Yeah. Great. And I think that's one thing I've really valued also in our friendship and our collaborations that we've done over the years is you've always brought a different energy, a different perspective to what I've got. And somehow we've managed to gel and do things.
Yeah, and you're
And
always the adult in the room. Sometimes.
sometimes. I was going to say, you always make me laugh. Um, but then I wanted to segue into the One Matchstick story, because
Sure.
that's actually how we met. We were at
Mm,
a networking event, and I had a huge fear at that time. So I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but a fear of public speaking. And the speaker was the person organizing it was asking for stories from the floor. And you and a few others around the table, I told about my matchstick story. It was in the early, early days. And you all put me forward. And the guy called out my name and I had to go up and speak. I was petrified. But since no longer, I've got over that fear of public speaking. But so we go back quite a long time in terms of my matchstick story. You've been a witness to it and actually also participated. So I just wondered if you wanted to say anything on that, but I thought just to highlight, because it's going to lead us to our search for the one matchstick entrepreneur.
yeah, absolutely. I remember, I don't remember all the details, but I do remember that we met at a 27 dinner.
That's it, yes.
And yeah, and I was with Lance at the time. And yeah, I remember that really, yeah, I remember that vividly. And in terms of for me, and what's again surprising to me is that you say you had that fear of public speaking at the time. You've obviously overcome that fear of public speaking now, but I always feel as though you've always been telling stories and telling stories to people who are willing to listen. That for me, had you not overcome that fear of public speaking, something that comes, something that I feel looking back comes naturally to you, you would have completely missed, which is, I
Yeah.
suppose, one of these things about for me about this idea of the journey or this journeying that we kind of do. What I recall about the One Matchstick story and our collaboration, our first collaboration, is that I used to host these networking events after we met at that one networking event. I used to host my own networking events because once again, it was a way for me to potentially meet new clients, meet new people, find ways of collaborating and partnering with people for my new venture at the time. And one of the companies that I collaborated with at the time, Missing Link, was giving away a video for somebody to capture their story. And you won that video from
Yes,
Missing Link, and they created that sort of profile portfolio
the
type
I
of
called it
video.
the movie, the one
Yeah.
matchstick movie. Yeah, and
Yeah.
what was interesting about that, because I applied and I managed to get through, and then at one of the networking events, we had to stand up and pitch. It came down to two people, and I remember going over my 1 minute pitch in the car all the way to this event, getting myself psyched up and I'm all ready to give you my 1 minute pitch. And you got up and said the winner is Talana because the other guy didn't show up. I don't
Yeah.
know if you
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was one of my learnings. It's sometimes amazing things happen when you just show up. So despite
Yeah.
the fear, as you said, if I was too scared to go through that process, I would never have got the one matchstick movie. And then we actually did a premiere event, and you were my MC there for that. So yeah, I really enjoy that, and I'll put the link to the one matchstick movie in the show notes for those that want to see what we're talking about. Um, yeah, and then I know I've also traded. So when I got to my t-shirt trade, I know you were, I think, one of the people I traded with a t-shirt for. I can't even remember what it was. Or the big t-shirt trade was quite complex, but we did did trade there. And I know I've asked you a few times as a mentor as well, and even with this podcast, and you've been very instrumental in helping me get my thinking clear and put it all together. And now I've asked you to join me in the search for the one matchstick entrepreneur. So I've finished the journey. We've got this office space. We want to help startup entrepreneurs, and we need to find the startup that will get the office space. And you're going to be one of the judges, along with Alon Reyes and myself, at the final event where they're going to have to pitch to get it. But I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that process.
Yeah, I think it's for me, I think it's interesting and it's fascinating. It also comes down to something that keeps coming up in our conversation time and time again, right? This idea of showing up. And a lot of the time we do show up, and sometimes you don't show up for ourselves. And I think that is, for me, one of the things that I realize about myself and I advise other people on, but I'm not very good at taking my own advice in where that's concerned. It's this idea of show up for yourself, number one, and secondly, show up for your dreams and the things that you want to accomplish. It's also about in, while as you show up for yourself, almost there are very many kinds of people who show up for themselves. There's the kind of person who, going to be controversial now. So there's the kind of person who tends to be a loudmouth, who tends to talk more than they do, who tends to almost overshadow the expert or the knowledgeable person. And then there's the kind of person on the opposite end of that spectrum who is the one who's knowledgeable, the one with the experience, but the one who sits quietly in the room, the one who sits quietly in the corner. And if anything, I'd love to see that kind of person who sits quietly in the corner and doesn't show up for themselves actually stand up and show up and pitch their dream and pitch their idea, because it's those people that we are missing in the world. It's those people that, in my view, are the ones who are going to change the status quo in a lot of the things that we're struggling with. I mean, South Africa has record power outages, water outages, and a lot of these things are, of course, linked to climate change and the fact that the world is changing. And it's the people who sit in rooms with big ideas quietly, not showing up for themselves, who never end up being seen or heard. I'd love to see that person showing up for themselves. And this is not to say everybody else who shows up for themselves every day shouldn't come, because both of them should make it. And I feel like if we have both people showing up and being seen, the world will definitely change. So this may seem like a small step, but it's a giant leap for the right person.
And maybe just, I want to ask you in a moment just what you actually mean by showing up. But I think in this context, what we're talking about is, because maybe I don't know if I've made it clear yet in this segment of the podcast, but the process to get to apply for the One Matchstick office is, and you've got applications are open between now and 5th of April. You need to send in a 2-minute video, a video of yourself that says why you want the office space, what you're going to do with it, introducing obviously your business idea. And it's for startups that are in the first 3-4 years of their journey. So it can either be, it's going to be a great opportunity for someone who's never started a business but has an idea. This might be the opportunity that kickstarts them into action, or someone who's going along and wants to expand or wants to get more professional and wants an environment that supports them, because the office space is in Raise Corp, which is also quite exciting. It's a business incubator. You're not actually in the actual incubation process, but you have access to all the facilities there, the offices, the meeting rooms, and the water, because as you say, half a Joburg hasn't had water and the power. So yeah, so we want people to show up, and as you said, the quiet ones who usually don't, as well as anyone who's more used to speaking up for themselves, and find a way to come forward and send in that application. So you just have to load it on your social media and tag onematchstick.co.za and risk tag or hashtag risk and rise one matchstick and tag me so that I can find you and add your application into the pool. Then we're going to actually go through all those applications, choose the top 10, and then the top 5. Oh, if the top 10, the public will then vote on their favorites, and the top 5 will get into the One Matchstick office warming party, where there you have to show up again. And from my story, it's worth showing up because sometimes it's all you have to do. But show up, do your last pitch, and then Alon, you and I are going to decide who gets the One Matchstick office space. But what advice would you give then for that really quiet one, that person that would help them maybe show up, and if they hear this opportunity and see it, or in other aspects of their life, because it's a very useful
Yeah, I think
place.
the it's this is going to sound a bit silly, but actually it works for me and it's kind of true. It's like we underestimate the idea of or the notion of scripting ourselves, of writing down and memorizing potential scenarios, potential conversations, and potential things. You asked about sales earlier, and one of the things that really great salespeople do or have done is that they've almost practiced down to a T every single rejection and every single scenario that would come up in a conversation to make that person, to get to a point where that person says, yes, I'll buy this thing. So we underestimate the power of scripting, memorizing, and thinking through what we want to say. And that's literally what a pitch is, right? A pitch is this idea of coming up with an idea, putting that idea together, and making that idea make sense through a series of sort of conversational cues that you come up with. So for both the quiet and the not so quiet person, it may seem easy to rattle off your idea, but it's not always the case when you have to talk about that idea with potential investors in the room, or somebody who can literally change the course of your business. So the idea really is that you script yourself, you think about what you want to say, and you rehearse it as much as possible to say it in front of people, and be prepared, be ready. I think the biggest thing, I think that one of the biggest things that I keep learning is that sometimes you want to win the lottery, whatever winning the lottery is to you, right? You want to win the lottery, but you aren't prepared with yourself to be a lottery winner or to be the recipient of that $100 million or whatever it is, right? And so the idea is be
And
prepared.
you don't actually buy the ticket.
Exactly.
And that's the starting thing, is you just have to buy the ticket and then get ready and prepare for being the
Yes,
person.
yes.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, scripting
Yeah.
is it, and if sorry, yeah.
No, I'm just thinking. I think the the thing that comes down to, if I were to put it down to one word, is mindset.
And what kind of mindset? Just
So the kind of mindset that we've just alluded to, right?
okay.
Prepare, buy the tickets, be in the
Show
right
up.
frame of mind, show up, script it, uh, try to understand what the conversation might be, warm yourself out to the conversation by rehearsing it. So be in the right mindset, be in the right
Yeah,
sort of frame of mind. So I think to me,
framework.
it's like prepare that mindset.
Yeah, so if I can put it into my what I teach as a courage coach and is specifically around confidence. Confidence only comes from practice, and I think that's what you're talking about. Is the scripting, the practicing, the getting yourself in the right mindset, and literally prepared to put yourself out there. It's a huge resource that we have. And a lot of people, I think, they're so scared they don't even start that preparation. And it's when you start preparing, you should be awkward and clumsy the first time you record your pitch and send it in to me to apply. And we're not worried there so much about the quality of your pitch. We're wanting to just know who's interested in gaining the office space. So phase 2, which is the top 10, and then phase 3, the top 5, that's where you then have time to really fine tune your pitch and really practice it and get it better. But the thing is also, and I just actually mentioned in the previous episode where I spoke about what is underneath the fear of failure, and I believe it's the way we've constructed our sense of worth. And part of that is separating our confidence from our esteem or sense of worth. And so in showing up, those that are quiet, I think sometimes they've linked too much who they are, their identity, to whether this thing that they're going to show up for works or doesn't work. And then they internalize it as I'm a failure because that failed. So my invitation to people is to separate the two, to understand your value is not linked to what you do. What you do comes with practice, and you need to do it in order to gain the confidence.
Yeah.
So it's you can go listen to that whole episode. People that want more of that distinction, and I'm sure I'll be bringing it up more and more. But it's I thank you for bringing up that part about confidence in my language. In yours, it's the preparation mindset. So super. So and I'm so excited to have you alongside me to debate about who's going to be the final startup that's going to get the One Matchstick office. So people who want to learn more about how to apply, they can go to onematchstick.co.za/search. You just go to that website, all the information's there. Otherwise, just get in touch with myself or even Mongezi. He'll point you in the direction. But yes, we are open now for applications, and just remember to tag me, let me know where your application is, and we can get the closer to finding the One Matchstick startup. So awesome. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share about the One Matchstick story. Otherwise, I got a few rapid fire questions to ask you.
No, there isn't much. No, there isn't much else. It's just that it's exciting. And if the right person gets it, they'll have access to office space and constant power, which is a plus. Yeah.
It is a plus in today's South Africa. Just how can people get hold of you before we start wrapping off? What's the best way to find you?
So I think the best way is probably go to theleadcreative.com, which is where my podcast is, or on X, formerly Twitter, just look for @Mongezi. That's another way, which is so these are the two quickest ways. And the third is just go to mongezi.com. That's where I blog and sometimes put some of my thoughts.
Awesome. So, rapid fire questions. You just got to say whatever comes to mind. So what comes to mind when I say risk?
Reward.
What is your secret weapon for bouncing back from a setback?
Perspective.
Great. What is the most important lesson you've learned as an entrepreneur?
Build.
And I think you've explained so much about that, and that mindset of each step builds on the next as well.
Yeah.
But what's the best advice you have ever received as an entrepreneur?
The best advice was There are so many. Start where you are with what you have.
Oh, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
one magic story is literally
Yeah.
starting.
Yeah. Start where you are
Awesome.
with what you
With
have.
what you
That's
have.
the best advice. Yeah.
What inspires you to get out of bed in the morning?
Coffee at the end of kicking the blankets.
I know actually for a while your office was a coffee shop,
Yes.
wasn't
Yeah.
it? I
Exactly. Yeah. I
remember
worked a
meeting
lot out
you.
of coffee shops. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was one in particular that you hung
Yeah.
out with. Oh, Mongezi, it's been a great opportunity. So maybe just to wrap up and just your last thought around, if you look back at your journey, is there anything that you would want to say to anyone who is feeling that fear of failure right now that's holding them back from taking their next step?
Yeah. And I think I think that the biggest thing is what happened in recent times with the rise or launch of generative AI. And it's that at some point, everyone is a novice. At some point, everyone is a beginner. And the only way you're not a beginner is if you learn and build every single day. The person who wins is the one who learns the most and applies their lessons in real time and real life. So I think that's the biggest, for me, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, thank you, Mongezi.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a great chat, and congrats on finally starting Risk and Rise and getting on this journey of building again.
Yeah, thank you. This has been Risk and Rise, and I've been Talana Simpson. Please remember to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. It really does help us to get this podcast in front of more people. Also, I'd love to hear what you took away from our conversation today with Mongezi. Do send me a tweet or get in touch somehow. The email address is hello@riskandrise.co.za. I'd love to learn what you learned from it today so that we can learn and risk and rise together.
Thank you for joining me on Risk and Rise, where we face fears, conquer challenges, and rise above adversity to achieve our dreams. Find out more at riskandrise.co.za.